Welcome back to the No Cannabis Talks. Don't forget to like, share, and use this series as an opportunity to join the conversation.
I'm Cecile Weigle. I'm the event director for Cultivated Synergy, which is a co-working and shared office space plus event venue for cannabis businesses. We really strive to be the community hub for the industry, offer entrepreneurs and businesses as well as cannabis enthusiasts a place to go for educational opportunities, networking, and social interactions.
Nice. I love that you guys did a space specifically for cannabis. People on the outside would assume that it's easy to kind of hold a marijuana event in Denver. I've come to find out that that's not exactly the case. Could you elaborate on the challenges?
Definitely. So we're at a point where they have clearly defined a significant portion of the legislation. The goal is to legitimize the industry and elevate everyone's brand and really just give the industry an opportunity and a place to do events like it would take place in any other industry, but with features that are unique to our industry. Since it's not well known and things change so quickly, it's not widely known in the community what it does take to do an event compliantly or safely. It also helps that we do so many that we manage all of that for our clients. So when they run an event here of that nature, it's taken care of by us from start to finish, so they don't even have to worry about it.
Oh yeah, that's spectacular. I was curious on if you guys felt disconnected from the industry in any way by not handling the plan at all, being kind of such an ancillary business. Do you feel that you may be missing out on any of the cannabis boom?
Yeah, great question. With not touching the plant, I think we all actually quite love it because it is in some ways much lower risk. I mean, because cannabis is still federally illegal, there's always that opportunity that your entire product base could be seized. Yeah, poof, and then you're out a lot of money, and you have no business to sort of recover. By not touching the plant and really being a business service, a service to the industry, we're able to really support our clients and our members and the people that we work with, so that we can compete and be seen by others as any other industry that are operating their businesses responsibly, professionally, moving the needle forward. So that's really our goal. So I think by not touching the plant, it just keeps us able to focus on exactly what our main goal is.
Great. Yeah, that's fantastic, because it's ultimately about kind of changing the stigma of the industry.
1,000%. 1,000%. That's something that's really important to us, is to continue to elevate the industry. The world is watching, especially in Colorado, so we really wanted to just help everyone do a really good job, not only from sort of a branding and polished professionalism side, but also, giving back to the community. I mean, this is a booming industry. It's important for us to start giving back to our local communities, both in money and in volunteer work and things like that. I think that's obviously the last thing to come along. Like in any industry in its infancy, you sort of don't get the luxury to think about how to give back until you sort of round a few corners. But I think we're really at that pivotal point that some social responsibility would go a long way in the eyes of those who may not support the growth of the community as much, to show that we're not just doing this because it's cool or because there's a lot of money in it. A lot of people are really, really passionate.
Yeah, and one thing that I personally appreciate about a regulated industry is the fact that even with, and if we could get the testing down across the country so that we have that federal standard, then you can go in, and even the buds that you're getting, you can go in and that it's been tested exactly what it is. And I found that when in kind of a black market world, any edibles that I got were made by somebody, and you never knew. And so it was until I came into a regulated industry before I found edibles that actually did anything for me.
I mean, when you smoke cannabis, it hits you really quickly, and edibles take a long time, like a lot longer than you ever thought they were gonna take to hit you. And so people are always like, I didn't feel it, so I ate another bite, and that's what gets you in trouble. So I always recommend tinctures or at least some kind of liquid edible if you're gonna start, because liquids are at least absorbed more quickly, and tinctures you can ingest sublingually. So just a couple drops under your tongue, holding it in your mouth for several seconds. That way it hits you in about 20 minutes instead of an hour and a half. You can kind of navigate that landscape a little easier until you figure out what your ideal dose is, because it's so individualized.
I've heard stories of everybody overdoes it on edibles at least once, and that's how you find your tolerance.
Totally.
And that was it. Is I went into it with this assumption that edibles don't really do anything for me.
I can eat the whole thing.
I'm gonna eat more than I should. And then before I knew it, I was
sleeping.
Yeah. Well, I was getting ready to leave for an international flight, and I was sitting there in the terminal going, oh gosh, I ate way too much.
Oh no!
It's like, all right, now I know my level, and I know that edibles work if you do them the right way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for those that use cannabis medicinally, edibles, or people who are looking for more discretion, I mean, edibles are a fantastic option. They're super precise. I mean, give or take a little bit because of the testing, but they're precisely dosed. You know, you have the opportunity, if you know 5 milligrams is your sweet spot, then you can kind of revisit that place with, you know, precision and repeat your experience. But yes, standards, and then just overall just like safety standards, like what they're putting on the plant, what's allowed. I mean, even though there are like some banned substances that, you know, growers or cultivators can't use in Colorado, there are other things that just aren't, there's not a lot of testing on it. They just don't know yet what long-term exposure to these things is going to do to you. Or, you know, little bit's fine, but people that are using cannabis regularly or daily or a few times a day, like what does that do? So definitely needs to be just overall more research. I think we can all agree on that, and I think that's one of the most frustrating parts with, you know, other than not having access to equal banking in the industry, I think just the ability to study what we're getting ourselves into and what the exposure, both the good and the bad, so that we can make more informed decisions as adult consumers. I don't think that, you know, that necessarily means that it shouldn't be available, so to speak. I just think that people who want to make informed decisions should be able to choose what works for them.
Giving people their own freedom to make their personal choices about what they want to ingest.
Just like alcohol.
Exactly, and set that standard so they know that when they go in and they buy beer, it's going to be this kind of beer, it's going to taste this way, it's going to affect them a certain way, versus something that might be heavier beer than alcohols, wines,
yes,
Bacardi 151. I mean, you can, and I kind of equate them in my head. Everything from the beer kind of effects to some dabbing super high concentrate or super high THC concentrates is kind of like taking a shot of 151.
Totally.
It could put you on your ass.
Totally.
Of course, there's a lot of other kind of factors that can come into play.
Well, one of my favorite things to recommend for people that want to try dabbing and maybe don't have a tolerance or high tolerance, or, you know, are new to consuming, is just to do low temperature dabs. Don't activate all the THC. You will get the best tasting experience of your life. I think that's why most people who dab, that's a common sort of praise, is the taste. You know, that's personally why, you know, I like it. It's just a really fresh taste. So you can experience that without being blasted to the moon, just by controlling the temperature, which is really nice. And again, not something a lot of people are educated about or have the opportunity to be exposed to in, you know, a really safe environment with someone guiding them through the process and things like that. So I definitely think that that's an emerging business service that will come out soon, you know, whether that's bud tenders going to people's houses, you know, and bringing everything to the cocktail party and doing sort of an in-home demonstration, because that would be totally legal right now. So it's just a matter of like marketing that and that still stigma exists in Colorado. I mean, we're a legal state, but there's still people who are very curious behind closed doors and don't know where to go to find out how to get more information and how to have a hands-on experience in a really safe way that they're not going to then, because if you overdo it, those are often the, then they're kind of like, I don't want to do it ever again. So you have a bad taste. And I don't think anyone who's passionate about cannabis wants anyone to have a bad time. Like, there's so many ways experiences you can have besides having a bad time that would maybe tell you, maybe I don't want to do this again, but it wasn't because I had a bad time.
You mentioned your dad. What differences did you notice? Are you originally from Colorado? No,
so I'm originally from Pennsylvania, and I moved to Colorado for college, which is about the same time that I started using cannabis recreationally. And at that point, it was mostly flower. I started working in the industry about 4 years ago on the retail side, and that's when I got exposed to the world of concentrates. It just wasn't something that was widely available or that there was a lot of education. And then, to that point, purchasing concentrates that are not commercially produced or regulated can be very dangerous. So I just want to stress that, because black market concentrates, they could be fine, but they can also be very dangerous if they're not done properly. But working in a dispensary started to get exposed to sort of this whole next level of the connoisseur world of cannabis, all about terpenes and flavor profiles, and really sort of having the opportunity to try the gamut of terpene profiles and see all of the nuances, and that it wasn't just sort of like back in the old days when you just got what you got and you didn't really know what it was or how it was going to make you feel. I think that's one of my favorite parts about living in a legal state, is that you have, it's like going and picking out wine, and it's really fun because you know exactly what flavor you like, what kind of high you like. I also really like the high from concentrates. To me, it's a really clear, functional high. I can feel a little kind of weighed down and like stoned on flower. Which there's definitely a time and a place for that. Like if I'm gonna watch a movie and curl up on the couch on a rainy day, like bring it on. But if I'm gonna like go talk to people out in public, and like not get tired and want to eat the fridge, then I'm probably gonna opt for concentrates personally.
Do you separate them versus indica and sativa when you do concentrates and or flower? I do to some degree. I tend to pick my favorites based on the process, or so, whether it's fresh frozen or sort of, just a traditional shatter. I'm all about flavor and then consistency. So like what it's like to actually, what the product is actually like to work with. But that's the thing about cannabis, is that everybody has their own favorite way. And that's the best part. Like someone will say like, no, like that's not the way to do it. I really like it this way. And that's all good because nobody really knows quite yet like exactly what's going on. What's the best
yeah, exactly. What is I'm sure there are like better ways and standards and things like that, but it's totally individualized, and some people love to just smoke flower out of a bowl, like just a glass pipe, no water, just straight. That's like their sauce. And then some people, I prefer an e-nail because I want to have the exact temperature that I like, with quartz versus titanium, and blah 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 blah. It's fun because you can go as far with it as you want.
Yeah.
And then there's also a really big community of others who share this sort of passion about exploring this fun. It's an opportunity to be creative and just like why people get into wine. They're not getting into, like, most people don't go tasting wine to get drunk. It's because they like it. It's really fun for them to learn about where it came from, what the flavor profile. And that's really what I find that a lot of cannabis connoisseurs are really more into than this whole idea of, like, being so stoned you can't do anything. Like that's sort of
as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, that's not really, I'm sure there are some, but that's not what I find that by and large most people are concerned with.
And you get on the flip side, you get the alcohol crowd that some people just want to get no.
Exactly.
And some people actually really appreciate the process. And
yeah, exactly.
there is a place in town called the Trichome Institute,
Yeah.
run by Max Montrose, and he is working on kind of developing a system that's similar to sommeliers,
Yeah.
wine sommeliers.
Yeah.
And the fact that these sommeliers can taste wine, they can tell you what region it was grown in, what the weather patterns were that year, what grapes were used, so on and so forth. And he's really working hard to develop this similar system in which you're smelling it, and just I went through one of his classes, and just to sit and see the side of the industry that's really just about expanding that knowledge and the understanding, and it's not just about getting stoned or as stoned as you possibly can. It's really about appreciating the different flavors and tastes and smells.
And the nuance of like the way the terpenes actually, because we all know this, but maybe not everybody does, that the entourage effect, is really more what changes the high, and so the nuance of the taste. This taste actually means I might feel this way. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. You understand what feelings you'll get based off of the smells or flavor of the concentrate you get.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised at how few people would really know what you were talking about when you say the entourage effect. Because that's one thing that I found, especially in the political side of things, is they're trying to separate just the CBD to work with kids with Dravet syndrome, because the CBD is the predominant kind of conversation topic, but it's the full effect of all the 500, 600 compounds in the plant that really make it as effective as it can be.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we can get, if straight CBD is where we need to start, I think that's better than not giving these people medicine that may help them. But then back to that whole idea of just like not having access to be able to research this and then be able to talk the talk in the terms that then actually make sense to legislators. Scientific evidence obviously is something that they're more comfortable with sort of making decisions based on, and if we're not given that opportunity, that makes it really difficult. We were actually recently contacted by the psychology department at CSU up in Fort Collins. They received some funding recently to do some cannabis studies, so we're going to be helping them get access to some survey participants and things in the community. So we are over the moon to be able to support any kind of research. I'm just thrilled to hear that, at least, even though there's a ton of red tape that they've said that they've had to worry about, that we're at least starting to see some progress in that area.
So you moved here for college.
Yeah.
It was it medically available then?
Yes.
Or was it, okay. What was using it recreationally in Colorado then? What was that like? And did you notice a lot of progress when it came to them developing their medical industry, and good things that were coming out of that kind of set up the framework to then properly introduce a recreational industry?
Yeah, great question. I'd say when I first moved here, the biggest takeaway was just that there was a lot more cannabis enthusiasts, even though it was still underground. There were a lot more people that were just passionate about it, passionate about cultivating it, and really, just like loved interacting with it. For a variety of reasons, as opposed to maybe more conservative states where there are people using cannabis in prohibition states. Like, we all know this. That's the one thing about cannabis, and so there was recently a cannabis wedding expo, and Beck Coop, who helped put that event together, explained it to me really well. She said, expect to see people of all ages, all socioeconomic backgrounds. Cannabis is sort of the one common denominator. It brings together a really diverse group. So because of the events being so diverse. We really see all facets, people who are older and have been smoking weed their whole life and are just excited, thought this day would never come, and are just passionate to be involved in any way and volunteer all the time and are just thrilled to be involved. We see really successful entrepreneurs from other markets looking to get involved in the cannabis industry. We see a lot of other businesses sort of looking for when their business will have that crossover point. They obviously see the value of and the potential of the industry. Yeah, a lot of really passionate people, a lot of people that are see it as an opportunity that they wouldn't have necessarily planned on having, and will do anything it takes to take advantage of that and be involved and really move the needle forward. I mean, these are passionate people who really take this work very seriously.
That's good, because that helps kind of move the industry forward and away from the stigma that's kind of been put on it the last 100 years.
Yeah, I mean, that stigma of like everyone being a stoner is, for so many reasons it's outdated, but finally the data is like proving it. I mean, the fastest growing market of cannabis consumers, I think nationwide, is women aged 45 to 55 or something. Don't quote me exactly on that, but it's not who you think of when you think of who's smoking pot.
And I also hope that this industry kind of brings to light the people that are in other industries that finally start to come out of the closet, their own cannabis closet, because they're starting to see the acceptance behind it. It's like, yes, I can be a CEO of a major multinational corporation and smoke cannabis when I get home at the end of my long work day doing this.
Totally.
And there are CEOs all over the place that do actually do that, but to have them be able to feel comfortable.
Come out of the closet. Yeah, I think I saw that. I mean, obviously, when I worked in a dispensary, that was, I think, one of the coolest and most apparent things about the customer base that you saw. I mean, you would see everybody come into a dispensary, like grandma and the bigwig CEO, all the way down to, the college kids.
College kids that just want to get stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That are over 21.
Yes, exactly. And so to go along with breaking away from the stigma, the entertainment industry for a long time essentially stigmatized marijuana smokers as predominantly male, is what you see in the movies. So could you elaborate for me on the female presence in the cannabis industry?
In terms of women, I would say there's two prongs to that. On a consumer side, I'd say that predominantly I see them being more non-traditional consumers. So in that sense, more discretion seems to be the most common request from female consumers. But now that there's a lot more options for them, I think that's helping a lot, and a lot more women doing it and then just talking to their friends about it, that also has been really big thing too. But one thing that's really unique about the cannabis industry is that there are such a high percentage of women that work in the industry and that are business owners in the industry. I mean, I think it's like 48% are women-owned businesses or something crazy like that, where you see a lot more women taking taking full advantage of this opportunity and really running with it, which is super cool. I don't think that that's anything necessarily to do with, I could be totally wrong, but in my personal opinion, I don't know if it's anything necessarily because of it being cannabis or because of it being an emerging market. I mean, maybe because it's a plant and it is a female plant, but I'm sure we could sit and study that, and that may be better suited after a dab to have that conversation.
And I was curious about, I'm glad you kind of, the rough 48%, I won't necessarily quote you on
I know
that.
on our Facebook page we have the statistic from yesterday being International Women's
Day.
Yeah, I know it's on there.
Because I was curious if there was any resistance to female-owned businesses, or because it's an early industry, are the challenges that women or minorities tend to have in other industries, are they running into that same issue here, or are they able to jump on that kind of modern idea with this modern revolution, cannabis revolution, and have that equal opportunity going in.
I'd say it's more of the latter than, say, other established industries that come along with their own dogma and their own stigma and things like that, that because it's sort of like whoever gets to it first will get the opportunity, and so there isn't sort of this like underlying nuance that it has to be a man or that it's a man's job kind of thing. So I think it's really awesome that, you know, that it's at least more equal. I mean, obviously, I feel like it should be like that everywhere.
Everywhere, totally.
Call me crazy.
We'll save that for our discussion next time to post abs.
There you go.
The process of legalization and kind of your time in the industry, and then your own experiences using it for however many years you've used it. Are there stories that you've come across that either make you just your blood boil, or the other end of the spectrum where somebody was treating an ailment and just them using cannabis or being involved in cannabis, the industry or whatever, just kind of filled your heart with joy?
Yeah.
And is it those types of things that keep you going, or do you just enjoy, is it as simple as just kind of enjoying coming to work because you're working in an industry that
great question.
has so much going on?
Yeah, really great question. I would say overwhelmingly that the personal, like seeing people's personal experiences with the way the plant has changed their life, and then hearing from people like Impact Network about, you know, how it's helped with opioid addiction and things like that. That's really what got me from just sort of doing this as like something fun, working in the industry, to like, okay, this is like a real game changer for a lot of people. I mean, there is a significant population that benefits astronomically from the use of therapeutic cannabis use. I'd say at the same time, I really love working in an emerging market. I mean, it's sort of the opposite of working in, say, like a giant corporation or a government job where there's a ton of red tape. Like if you want to make a change and you can figure it out, like the opportunity is there. It's just a matter of like, everything's figure-outable is kind of my motto. And so working in an industry that gives you the opportunity to really exercise, that is super exciting. I mean, it's definitely exciting, and then backed with like 1,000% of need and, you know, therapeutic benefits it's sort of the perfect storm.
Nice. So lately we've kind of gotten a little resistance from our political elite.
Well said.
There seems to be a fear. There's a fear from even loosening the strings enough to do research and things like that. And we're even still seeing restrictions on things like cannabidiol, CBD. What aspects of Colorado's industry have they done right, and what kind of things have you seen that have come out that aren't good?
Yeah,
that are kind of negative sides.
Great. This is, you know, my personal opinion, in no way a reflection of Cultivated Synergy's official stance on this one, but I would say I'm like beyond thrilled with how Colorado has been operating their recreational system thus far. I think that, as opposed to, say, maybe some other ways of doing it, we've really kind of gone above and beyond in being able to track everything. You know, I mean, it's uncharted territory, you know, so like you just kind of figure it out as you go. So obviously there's a lot of always room for improvement, but overall I'd say I personally think things are going quite well, and that ultimately I think that that money will talk.
I go back to the banking thing. You said give us our banking, basically, and it was 2016 between recreational and medical. Colorado did $1.4 billion or $1.2 billion in sales, and it blows my mind.
That's crazy.
That is yet another thing that seemingly hasn't been enough of a stimulus.
Yeah. Well, I think talk is cheap. I think a lot of people, like, you know, I mean, especially in politics, you know, say things that may not be carried out all the way. The cannabis industry has created a ton of jobs, a ton of opportunity. It's, all things pointing towards positive. So I'm not worried. I think anytime, when something's not federally aligned with the state's legislation, there's always in the back of your mind a level of risk. But I think everyone who got into this industry totally knows that, and they didn't get into this industry because it was sort of safe or, all had everything figured out, that they're pioneers, they're thought leaders. There's a reason that they chose to participate, knowing all of that and still moving forward. So I think that as long as we really cultivate that attitude, that can do, everything's figure outable, and we'll just keep moving forward, that can only bring more good.
Nice. If you had the ability, without the red tape, without politics, if you had the ability to kind of frame out a rough medical and or recreational system for the country, what kind of ideas would you throw out to Congress, or just if you had all the power and could go, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this?
Yeah, great question. I don't know if I thought in too much depth about that. I think kind of potentially going federally nationwide all at once could be a slippery slope. I don't know. I bet there's people that could speak way more on that than I can, but I think the first thing would be to remove it from the schedule system completely, and let's just start there. That would be really my first goal.
Yeah, that would let the states kind of slowly move in at their own pace, as opposed to just kind of opening the floodgates.
Yeah, and I think that's at least what I've been educated from NCIA is that would then allow, free up the restrictions on research and just a lot of the things that are innately a hurdle with it being a scheduled drug.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to get through. I came across an article that was talking about the supply that they have out of, I think it's the University of Mississippi.
Yep, I saw that, where they're like microbes or whatever. I was actually talking to CSU about that yesterday, and he said that the high potency that comes out of there is 8% THC, and the low potency is basically hemp.
Oh, gosh.
So he said that studying it can be really difficult in states other than Colorado for that exact reason. You just don't have the access to quality
decent
materials.
Cultivated material. Exactly. And it's hurdles like that we run into on a regular basis, because that's the ideas that they're coming from and kind of the standard that the federal government has on what's going on. And just to look at that platform, you can see that compared to what's actually happening, there is a huge disconnect there.
1,000%. 1,000%. I think that there's a huge disconnect in I think that there's a lot more that's happening that they just wish wasn't, that some people just wish wasn't. So it's just easier to say, oh, let's not do that.
Oh yeah. It's like the comparison of, we don't want to encourage legalization because then we're in turn encouraging the opioid epidemic. And it's that
yeah, I agree. The opioid epidemic is something it's a problem that could not so easily, but we have tools that could help.
You could curtail a lot of the issues that are out there.
And opiates just are physiologically addictive. It's not that you are a bad person or that you. Of course, that happens to people for various reasons, but I think, at the Impact Pain event, just hearing the personal stories from the practitioners about their experience with both opiate addiction in their patients and then the use of cannabis for pain, it was just why are we not? This is coming straight from the horse's mouth, so that's, very interesting.
Well, thank you.
Yes,
thank
you.
Or allowing me
thank
to
you for coming out.
disturb your day.
Yes, this is great. It was very fun to chat about all this, and I'm super excited to see what comes from the project.
Cool. Me too.
Awesome. Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Evan.
Thank you.